Welcome to Charts Today Europe. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Thursday, the 18th of October, comes to you from London. And markets falling again. We saw the US receding towards the close yesterday. Asia's looking pretty weak this morning, having closed down, especially China, and we're seeing Europe opening lower. So, and probably most of all the US futures, which drive markets, are down some 0.5% this morning. So, dollar is actually looking stronger again. The Fed comments yesterday. Um, Bullish for the dollar, and so we're seeing that dollar rising, euro falling against that stronger dollar. Japanese yen is actually the dollar falling a little bit this morning, but we're seeing the dollar is strong on all three time frames. Remembering this is my weekly long term, my daily medium term, and my 60-minute short term. So this just gives me a long term, medium term, and short term view on the market. And on all three time frames, the dollar is strong against the yen, which tends to be a lead indicator. Sterling falling lower against the dollar this morning. Remember, this chart is inverted against the dollar. So we're seeing sterling lower, dollar stronger. And so we're just nudging that 130 mark. Some of that will be to do with Brexit, but a lot of it's to do with dollar strength. We're seeing against the euro, sterling is fairly flat. Against the Swiss franc, also fairly flat. Against the Aussie dollar, sterling actually hitting new multi-week lows on Aussie dollar strength on job numbers in Oz. Looking at Bitcoin, still bearish on the medium and long-term charts. Short-term, really nothing happening in the last couple of days, so quite a hard one to call. US stocks looking less good than they were. They had a good bounce the day before yesterday, but last night we managed to seesaw and end up little changed. The Nasdaq also much the same picture, and we'll take a look at the stocks in a minute. Dow Jones was actually down 1/3%, and the broader based Russell index was down nearly 0.5%. So across the board, US stocks didn't really do very well yesterday, and we're seeing the futures this morning. The S&P future down 0.4%, and the Nasdaq E-mini down 0.5%. So it does suggest the US market will open lower. So we're seeing that there. The spectre of higher interest rates and bond yields increasing in the US is certainly weighing on demand as well. Seeing the FTSE future down, the DAX future down, the FTSE cash market actually down very slightly this morning. So not opening way down, but it's still struggling to find any traction. The UK mid caps down 0.16%, so performing worse than the FTSE, and the DAX is down very slightly, and the CAC Courant is actually up very slightly. So we're seeing quite a shift there. Japan down some 0.6%, the Hang Seng down 0.5%, and China now nudging a 3% fall, making new 4-year lows, starting to look very worrying indeed. We've been worried about China all through the year, and feel that that is a black swan for the markets. It's going to really disrupt global equities. Sensex is down 1%. The Aussie market, a bright spot on those stronger job numbers. Crude oil actually back below $80 for Brent, so we're sitting at 79.83. We're short-term bearish. WTI also short-term bearish. US nat gas is actually holding most of its gains, sitting at $3.29. Taking a look at gold, it's just around this, sitting around this 1220 level, turning a little bit short-term bearish, but at the moment we do have these upside targets to play for, some 6% higher on gold, so that will be quite interesting. And silver also just turning a little bit bearish, but still looks like we'll go higher. US 10-year yields jumped on those Fed comments yesterday, sitting at 3.21%, and German bonds falling this morning as a result. So bond markets falling, the long-term, medium-term charts pretty bearish for European bonds, which will also have a factor on equity markets. Taking a look at stock markets globally, we saw the US was down slightly. Seeing Europe fairly mixed this morning, and the Asian markets all falling. This data on my screen all coming from Yahoo. So this is Yahoo weekly, daily, and here I've got, we don't have 60-minute intraday data for Yahoo, but here I've got my daily chart, my on-balance volume, and a relative strength to the Dow Jones index, so I can just see how stocks are underperforming the US. So taking a look at the US first, we saw, just looking at the bellwethers, we saw Apple was up. Uh, Sorry, down 0.4%. Amazon was actually looking stronger, so they bucked the trend yesterday. Facebook also was up some 0.4%. Remembering that the Nasdaq closed fairly flat, Tesla was down 1.73%. And if we look at Netflix, they were up 5% on stronger viewing numbers, looking much stronger, outperforming the market this year by 75%. And then Microsoft looking stronger at $110. Just taking a look at the leaders and laggards in the Nasdaq. The leaders was Netflix up 5%, Workday up 2%, still looking a little bit like it's bouncing off support there, so looking better. And then taking a look at the fallers, JD.com, no big surprises there. Chinese exposure looking bearish in all three. O'Reilly Automotive's a strong performer, just giving up some of its gains of late. And Tesla was in in those fallers. Looking at UK this morning. Here's the FTSE. These prices all coming in from Yahoo. Looking at the rises, we've got WPP looking stronger this morning, but of course a very weak chart indeed. So that's a counter trend move. Vodafone also looking bearish. A lot of these stocks looking quite bearish on the FTSE. Here we see Tesco is looking stronger. Morrison's looking stronger. A little bit of a theme there. Supermarket Sainsbury's actually looking stronger. EasyJet's been one of late that's been falling quite heavily. Maybe we're just sitting on a support level here, but airlines are having a torrid time lately. Taking a look at the fallers in the FTSE, CRH down 4%, looking weak as well below the cloud. Ashted also looking weaker. Johnson Matthey and Unilever down 2%. So we're seeing some pretty big falls there. The FTSE 250, just looking at the leaderboard here. Again, this data coming from Yahoo. Domino's Pizza is looking strong, but has been pretty weak of late. A 5% rise there, but not really changing the chart. And One Savings Bank also just starting to look a little bit stronger there, bouncing off a recovery, maybe finding some long-term support. Taking a look at the laggards, Games Workshop down 7%. So that's looking a little bit worrying. The fact that we're sort of falling through this support level, also not so good. James Fisher and Son down 4%, just turning weaker again on that medium-term chart. Renishaw also looking lower there. Looking at just across to the European markets, this is the Euro Stock 600 again coming from Yahoo. And so if we look here, Carrefour looking very strong, up 7% this morning, and still that's medium-term bullish, long-term bearish. Publicis, we saw WPP higher in the UK, Publicis looking higher there in France. And so there are stocks outperforming the market, but of course we've got this really situation where really big falls. Heidelberg Cement down some 7%. CRH we saw SAP down 4%. So we are seeing some quite big falls here. Lafarge down nearly 4%, really just falling out of bed there. So it's a really mixed picture, but on the whole, market's looking pretty bearish. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.